Thank you for staying with us. As we said before the break, we now have in the studio, I had earlier said editor-in-chief. It appears he didn't want that promotion. So to correct myself, the editor of 21st Chronicle newspaper, Malem Nuruddin Abdullah. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And it's a pleasure to see you again.
It's a pleasure.
It does appear that you are getting bigger with the fasting. It has not taken any toll on you at all. But again, thank you for making efforts to be here.
Thank you very
and
much.
to serve our teaming viewers with your perspective on what the papers are saying this morning. And without wasting much time, we will take the Daily Trust newspaper. The major headline, like we said earlier, is it's a radical departure from all other papers in Nigeria, keeping in the tradition of the Daily Trust to serve you something different. It reads, pressure mounts on Pinnick to resign over quarter 2022 failure. The riders there read, he ought to have resigned a long time ago. Senate summoned embattled president, sport minister. Third term ambition in jeopardy. And directly under the nameplate, we have Buhari rights rep 965, I beg your pardon, billion fresh loans. That's about $1 trillion naira. The next one there is defection, no provision to sack Ayade deputy. That's according to the court. And on the editor's peak, we have RAMAF, which is the Agency for Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission. In its proposed committee report, reduces federal government allocation to 45.1%, apparently from 51%, and increases state, local government share of the revenue allocation. Federal High Court bars journalists, public from terrorism trial. And finally, we have Kwara Community Chief nabbed over rape and murder of 2 women. This is an interesting debacle. It appears Pinnick has practically sacked everybody under him for the failure except himself. But I thought the buck stops at the table. What's your perspective of this story?
You see, the National Assembly, as usual, when when all the elements of failure are glaring for everybody to see, they will step back until what is not expected happens. Then they'll start crying foul. I see it just as their usual media trials, playing to the gallery. And Pinnick, we don't know, maybe this may be the end of his career. Because if you know, Pinnick in Nigerian football, personifies that a life within 9 lives. Because if you look at all the corruption charges, court cases, I remember we did dozens of stories, but the man is still there. He has developed a thick skin where he survives all the, but we don't know. And I am not a football, but the way we do our things, that German coach, you had an agreement with that guy. He will take you, he'll qualify you to the World Cup, to the Nations Cup and what have you. And he did. But there were a lot of pressure. You seem to change the rules in the middle of the game. That guy did not violate any agreement. You signed with him, but you kick him out.
But they said he was not playing entertaining brand of football, and that is what Nigerians
Was it part of the agreement he signed? Now you brought your local technical advisor, local coach, and whatever, and they were playing. You were making the team to play the type of entertaining football you guys. And look at what happened.
Okay, now let's get more details on the Pinnick report. We have joining us virtually Daily Trust sports correspondent Olushola Ayodele to talk to us more about this report, as he's the person that authored this report. Hello, Olushola.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, now can you talk to us more, about how you got to actually author this report?
Okay, basically because of how the Super Eagles fared in the World Cup qualifier series, Nigerians that did not qualify for the World Cup. And we're looking at the fact that Ahmad Pinnick has been in Sado for the past 7.5 years plus. He's 10 years is elapsed this year. And within this period, he has not been able to perform duties very, very well. He has not gotten Nigeria to the peak as we all expected it to take us to. And of course, Nigerians are not calling for his resignation. And I think he should follow the line of the Algerian FA, who resigned when Algeria failed to qualify for the World Cup, but then he's not willing to leave yet. It's not going to be easy to put him. It's not going to be easy to push him out anyway, because he's adamant. He wants to remain in charge. According to him, he still has plans and good visions for the national team. So that's it basically for now.
If you have plans and good vision for the national team and you don't seem to have a strategy to execute those plans, isn't that sufficient basis for you to leave the office? Are we being held to ransom because of the FIFA rules that the government cannot interfere with the activities of sports in a country?
No, I don't think so. I just think it's just because of that Nigerian mentality that I will die there. In quotes, I will die there. Naturally, he should have left, but he still wants to remain in power, and it's not because of the FIFA ban or whatsoever. It's just because now their constitution, the NFL constitution, gives him more power to stay. Now he can go for a third term. He can go for a third term as it stands right now, and the statutes of the NFL empowers him to go for as many rounds as possible. And the executive committee of the NFL is a closely knitted body comprised of about 50 members. And these people are the ones that will choose, of course, they will do campaigns around the country, for each NFL president, you just need to have at least three persons from the state estate to support you and all that, and of course your state administration. And if he gets that, he's good to go. So it's a different
Okay.
it's a ball game. It's a very different ball game when it comes to NFF. Very very strong federation that they have so much power that to even get the federal government involved, you know. Now they don't want government interference, which is fine. But I think if the sports minister is wise enough, there are other means to get him out of office. You can use he has several court cases on ground. You can use that to twist his hand, threatening that if you don't do this, you bring up your files and everything. But unfortunately, the presidency is not so interested in sport per se. And if we have a presidency that's so much love for sport generally, I think they could have done something behind the scenes to get him out of office. But
Okay.
as it stands right now, he's not willing to leave yet. According to him, he has good plans for Nigeria.
Okay, so Olushala, quickly, before we unlink, what do we know so far, about Senate summon of the sports stakeholders? Do we have any details of that summon by the Nigerian Senate?
Okay, that basically has to do with what the fans did at the stadium, had vandalized the whole project, the main pole, and inside the stadium as well. So, what you saw on screen was just a minute thing of what happened in the stadium. The fans still went inside the stadium, broke glass, broke windows, broke anything they could lay their hands upon, inside the stadium. And we know how much was invested there to renovate the stadium, coming from Aliko Dangote, who spent over $1 million, and it was so painful and shameful that fans, took the law into their hands, destroy what the government, what individuals spent money to repair and all that. So the Senate is calling Pinnick, the sports minister, and all the stadium managers for a meeting, to probe them what went wrong. And yes, some things went wrong because we wonder where were the stewards. The stewards were there, but where were they? that they could allow fans to invade the pitch. Where were the security officials that were employed, to do the job? Where were they? They
I,
were nowhere to be found. The
I
best
think the
thing
stewards
the
were
best thing to do
more.
was to
I think the stewards were more interested in stopping the ordinary fans from getting into the stadium and providing body shields for the VIPs at the gate than doing the actual work of preventing a mob action on the pitch. Thank you very much, Jide, for offering those perspectives. We hope you have a great day. We'll continue to come back to you subsequently to get an update on how this development is moving. Hopefully, we're able to get to a point where we get the right set of personnel to advance football for us in this country, because it's
hopefully.
one thing that sort of unites every part of this country. Thank you very much and have a great day, Jide.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. You have heard the perspective of the man who has his foot, the one with the boot on the ground. What do you make of some of the things he has told us?
Yeah, like you said, in this office, we wrote about 3 or 4 stories. Not athlete, I think, but one was even elite about the same guy. But like I said, like Jide mentioned, there are multiple court cases, graft cases. But I don't know. Like you said, that FIFA immunity or something like that. Even my thinking is even the courts are very careful the way they dispense justice. Whenever anything has to do with NFF, comes before their own. There are multiple cases you won't even know. A case will be there, for 1 year, 2 years without being heard or without any debt. You understand? And like I said, even the federal government, they can sack a sport minister. You remember what happened? Suspend a former minister, was it Dalong, tried to suspend NFF. It's a cabal.
It is.
One of the biggest cabal in the country. At the end of the day, they even
bigger than the petroleum cabal.
They can cause the sack of a sports minister out of it. They have so much money. And this Pini, he's so much, it's not the same guy with that wide on that's always in all these shows or whatever. So it's very powerful. So let's see how it goes with Senate.
We have quite a number of papers, to have a look at this one. Let's move away from the Daily Trust newspaper and take a look at another paper talking about the Nation newspaper this morning. And the Nation, on the flip side, is leading with a different story about attacked train. Families of abducted passengers protest. And some of the writers there say, my expectant sister, husband with terrorists. Protesting pastors seek bombing of bandits. Defense headquarters to Nigerians, don't despair. You find other stories on the Nation newspaper also. 2022 budget deficit to hit 7.38 trillion. Buhari writes lawmakers. And then you see the story also about mass redeployment in police. Under Governor Akeredolu not ill in Germany. UBA records 153 billion profit before tax. So, for me, the lead off is a story about the attack train. Families of abducted passengers protested yesterday, at the press briefing at the Ministry of Transportation. One of the victims' relative is saying, my expectant sister, husband in terrorists, and many more, families as well are still with these terrorists. And then the defense headquarters is telling Nigerians not to despair. Is that enough, for them?
So, it's unfortunate that our security officials, handle these serious cases, these very, I can't say unprofessional. Based on what we see, if we take, let's say, US or UK or whatever, if a calamity, a disaster like this happens, you see that there will be permanently a 247 decks situation report. We are security officers. Are you talking about the fire service? Are you talking about the police, the FBI, or any other security agencies? They give up to the minute report until that situation is properly dealt with. But in the case of the train bomb attack, I think the magnitude of the attack is enough to prevent all the security chiefs from sleep. Their family members follow the train. They don't trust the roads anymore. You can't fly into Kaduna now because most of the airlines, perhaps maybe if you can order a private jet or a military one, you can't fly into Kaduna because of that incident that happened 2 days before the terror attack on the train. But unfortunately, if you want the latest information now on the fate, how many people are being in custody, nobody can tell you with exactitude. You understand? Family members are left to their own devices. But nobody can, no government official, security, administrative, or otherwise can tell you, okay, based on the manifest by the Nigeria Railway Corporation, so number of people are unaccounted for. You know, and the Railway Corporation started something fantastic, but I think maybe they were stopped. You remember, Engineer Okiria started something. He was giving us daily updates. So number of coaches have been railed. So number of sleepers have been put in place.
I think the updates were largely as it borders the aspect of the railway operations.
Yeah, as well as the number of the casualties. You know, he was the one that gave us the true picture. What the police are telling us, only 8 people were killed,
Do not despair.
21
About 21.
Injured.
And do not despair.
How?
Interesting. We move on quickly to other stories on the Nation newspaper. Here we see that the president is back asking for permission to go borrowing. 2022 budget deficit to hit 7.38 trillion. He's asking for about an increase of 1 trillion. How much of this debt can this country sustain at this point in time?
You know, if you read the president's letter to the House of Reps, you know, it gave a very graphic, I can't say doomsday per se, but it is not the deficit even that matters. We have jacked up subsidy payments from barely 500 billion to 3.57 trillion and now to 4 trillion just for 2022. I look at it from the other side, from the other, how much infrastructure that affects you, her, me, and other Nigerians can you fund with 4 trillion? Enough. Let me quickly say, Kaduna, Abuja, Kaduna, Zaria highway reconstruction is valued at about 8.something billion, 800-something billion. With what we are planning to spend, to borrow and spend on subsidy, that is abstract, you understand, can fund this road with ease. The CBN, for instance, is constructing 21 roads across the country at the cost of about 600 billion. That same project can be comfortably accommodated in this, what we're planning to spend on subsidy. The East-West Coast Road that traverses more than 10 states and has been there since 2000 or so. They requires about 750 billion to put it to bed. It can still be accommodated. But look at what we are trying to do now. You remember when you guys suspended the implementation of the PIA for 18 months? You plan to spend 3 trillion, but the UN said no. Not UN, the World Bank said no. Based on the happenings in the extractive industry, about 4 trillion is needed, and the president just did that. And look at the sustainability ratio. And the worst part of it, this is the time that Nigeria should make some extra cash. with the Ukrainian crisis. But we are not. Based on the letter yesterday, now we have even down our oil production from 1,888,000 barrels per annum to 1.6 million barrels. And how much are we even producing daily? According to April report and NPC report, we are producing less than 1,230,000.
About 1.3 million barrels. Yeah.
So you can see the dilemma. We are confused.
We have the NNPC, would I call him MD or CEO or GMD? I'm not sure which one is the proper designation now. Yesterday told the House of Rep that we from January to date, we have lost about $1.5 billion, which is about 670 billion naira, if you like. I mean, so much pilfering of a nation's scarce resources. We move quickly to the Blueprint newspaper, and the major story there, it's bordering on the activities around the major opposition party with the kicker as Autumn Committee reports on zoning hangs. Crisis looms. Chieftains drag PDP Atiku to court. Once ex-VP barred from presidential primaries. Committee report jettisoned. Party adjusts timetable, extend sales of nomination form. Urges the UN support for INEC on electronic transmission of results. I have no disagreement with IU, Suswan, and Mark, says Autumn. NAFDAC boss or he joins the Benue presidential race. And below that story, we are committed to securing Nigeria despite setback. This is according to the defense headquarters, coming directly, I think, from the Chief of Army Staff. Directly below the nameplate, 30 years after, the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Planning Commission proposes new revenue formula for states, local government. We await outcome of constitutional review, according to the president. And right below the paper strip, the bottom strip, it's defection, Court of Appeal upholds Ayade's mandate. That's on page 5. Failed MFBs. The NDIC deploys platform to fast-track depositors' reimbursement. Nigeria lost $1.5 billion in 3 months to oil theft, vandalism, according to Kerry. And SS3 students develop technology to curb railway attacks in Nigeria. That's an interesting one, starting from that, coming from the SS3 students. How much are we doing with innovations? How much is there a linkage between what we see in our institutions and in our actual society with regards to linking ideas from these places to the institutions that require them? I mean, from your experience, I know you had done a story like that in the past about how our research work seemed to be lying fallow in all the institutions. What lessons are there to learn? Does this signpost that the solution to our problem could be lying just somewhere within our system?
Don't even go to the research institutes. Go to the universities where our future leaders are trained. They are on strike now for how many? Which is the third month, right?
Yeah.
It's still a warning strike. They haven't started the men.
They've started the men 2 weeks ago, but it's a revolving monthly strike. So at the end of every
like
month,
on
they
a rolling
evaluate
basis.
like a revolving loan. You know.
I don't know. Just look at the budgets. Under education, agri, science and technology, health, you see how many research institutes do we have? And unfortunately, governments find it difficult to do away with an institute or a ministry or an agency, provided it is established. Somebody was telling me some time ago that, who against indiscipline?
Yes.
Started by this government
Yes.
in 1983 or so. It's still a unit under if you go to NOA. And people are employed there even though they're doing nothing. I remember at that time, there are a lot of research institutes and guzzling trillions, doing nothing. We went to some of them. Some of the workers don't even go to work. Yeah, they are federal workers. Some doing extra postgraduate. Some are always in Cotonou buying bokers. Some women are always selling brocades and what have you. But they receive salary.
Nature does not have a vacuum. If the government would not use them, how else do you want them to put themselves?
So, and the problem is, so they keep the red tape long. And we have to be having reviews. But if government establishes an agency, it hardly
Scraps.
Why it was, look at it this way. Why is it that the oral Sanya report, the most beautiful thing that will happen to the civil service in Nigeria is still, this is the 70, and President Buhari is still foot dragging. This thing started since Eradua. Match some of the agencies. Okay, look at what happened to NNPC now, to the oil sector. At least some 3 agencies have been matched. You are still you have deregulated the oil sector, the PMS, but you still have an agency, a very rich agency, paying workers and whatever that are still paying what do you call it, subsidy, whereas you are not doing it. So that's the problem. The problem is our research agencies should be put to good use, but they are not. And some of them need to be scrapped. I remember in Jigawa there is a research agency for palm, for debt. Okay. You know Debino?
Yes.
There is a federal research agency specifically for it. If you go to fresh water, sea water, lagoon water, doing nothing. They all know any capital votes, only salaries. And like I said, the workers are not always there. Quickly, my friend got an appointment some years back. So he went to Kaduna Federal Secretariat, where he was joined. I won't mention the name of the organization. He went there to come and register to present his honor to the boss. He was told, no, the boss has traveled to Cotonou. I said, what is that?
You must be obsessed with this
Cotonou. What have you?
Yeah.
He rejected. Is it the type of life I will? Nothing is happening.
Amazing.
But they're federal workers.
Yeah, but let's speak to quickly, before Zainab goes to the next paper, on the major story on the blueprint. Crisis looms as chieftains drag PDP Atiku to court. What's your assessment of what is going on with the major opposition party right now?
Not too unusual. You should expect more court cases. Chieftains, whether they are in their villages or whatever, when they come to the list, papers, they are called chieftains. You understand? But principally, it's about this zoning issue. The truth is, I'm not a politician, but I have reported politics for a very long time. The truth is, you can't zone a position to a section of the country or to an individual, you can't fly your tickets. Let's assuming now, okay, we'll simply zone, let's say PDP, we'll simply zone the ticket to Northeast. If you bring somebody from the Northeast and present him as presidential candidate, what are his chances? His acceptability rating? Can other Nigerians, when PDP came in 1998, for instance, they had a choice. Yeah, there must be power shift because of Nadeko and whatever. And they settled on 3 people. The power must shift to the south, so that to stabilize the country at that time. Not only south, to southwest. And even in southwest, not able to Tom, Dick, and Harry. They figure out 3 people. Obasanjo, who was then serving a present term, attempted to coup, what have you, led Bola Ige, and the former SGF, Olufalaye. And they scrutinized these 3 people. Yes, they were all qualified to be president of Nigeria. But no, it's about election. They pick Falaye. Yes, Southwest, he has a very good, he's acceptable to the South. But what of the other part of the country? He will have problem. Same thing with Bola Ige. That was why they settled on Obasanjo, brought him out from prison, granted him amnesty, dusted him up, funded him, and they presented him to Nigeria. And he won. That's how it is done. You can't just zone for the sake of zoning. You can zone without winning the election. What benefits is that? So that's what happened to PDP. There are certain zones. If you zone your ticket to that, forget about it. The other sections of the country will not do.
Interesting.
That is it.
Interesting.
You understand? That is it. So it's the same thing that is happening. So when you find somebody that it must come to the southeast, northeast, no. Look at, test the pulse in the country. Bring, let's say, Wiki. Let me use names. Outside River State, Wiki cannot win, cannot deliver south to south, not to talk of the entire south. Don't go to Northwest, the biggest voting bloc. Don't go to Northeast. He may sail through maybe in Nasarawa, Benue, or Plateau, Nasarawa, if you, but not even the other side of the north. So can you just bring Wiki because you want to zone something to the south? He can come by 11 o'clock, he's defeated.
He said he's not a politician, but he's beginning to sound like one now. Really now.
So that's the reality. And that's even the dilemma that is even happening with the APC. They are so confused now. Left to me, there are two political gladiators. And you know, they are doing that, what we call in those days, pattern the end. It's the battles of the Titan. If you don't, there are people, if you don't give them your ticket, don't forget it, Mr. Sunday.
Politics.
So it's a reality.
Quite a drama. Now, our papers are picking, similar stories I can see this morning, but let's take a look at The Guardian. And The Guardian is leading with quite a very different story. Ige's mother, I'm willing to go to court, says Shoinka. And then some of the writers there say, Falana offers free legal service, says Shoinka exercises freedom of expression. APC, Buhari insensitive, Carlos should have rewarded Omishore with envoy to Ukraine. I never campaigned for Buhari, only asked Nigerians to vote out Jonathan in 2015. Could you comment on that story?
When I saw the Nobel laureate talking about, he's so obsessed with Ige Abolage's mother. This thing happened December 2001. I think he should move on. I'm not a fan of Omishore, but I don't think the Nobel laureate, with due respect, is a member of the APC. So you can't sit down in your Lagos apartment and decide to the ruling party who they pick as the national secretary.
But as a Nigerian, and who will be impacted by remotely or otherwise by the activities of the ruling party, can't you express an opinion when you think somebody of questionable character is elevated to such a position? What kind of signal does it send, to people who seem to be involved in similar kind of vices?
Mr. Sunday, I'm afraid that
even though
you may be charged for defamation, like the Nobel laureate. I think the national secretary has said he has instructed his lawyers to file charges against the Nobel laureate. Where was the Nobel laureate when all these intrigues to bring Omishore was going on? He has a clout that he can reach out to the Southwest governors, who are the biggest stakeholders of the APC. No, I learned that you can call Akere Dolo SAN or even Tinubu. I learned that you guys are planning to bring this guy. But don't you think that because of what he did in the past, Amachu, Omishore has been acquitted and discharged over the murder of Bola Ige? So what is the Nobel laureate saying?
Interesting.
And he's saying that to go to court. I don't know, to go to court and say what?
Interesting.
The mind is confused or something like that. So.
Away from politics, we see this story on page 29, still staying with the Guardian newspaper. Gunmen kill 2, injure others in Plateau IDP camps. I mean, these people ran away from their settlements to an IDP camp where the standard of living is subhuman. And we are still getting attacked right at this camp. For a place like Plateau that is sitting on a principle where things can go wrong within a minute, what should we do, to avert this kind of situation?
I don't want to, like I'm not a politician, I'm equally not a security expert. I only observe, and when you observe for a very long time,
you become a participant observer.
Because apparently, Sunday, the security agencies are overwhelmed. In the last 2 weeks, not even up to 2 weeks, do you know how many soldiers were killed? The Zuma barracks, gas brigades, the elite military unit that protect the seat of power. About 8 or 7 of them were gruesomely murdered by non-state actors. Double of that number wounded. That's not enough. Some days ago in Kaduna, they attacked a forward military base. If not a checkpoint, it's a forward military base. They gruesomely murdered, according to the signal of the military, 11 soldiers, 16 others wounded. They carted away military hardware. They burned down those they couldn't move with. What is really happening? Military has been, before insurgency, the military has been the last, they are the last, if you put it this way, the last man standing. The police and whatever, but now the military is being, how can I put it? The military is now being demystified. So what is actually the problem? So it is not surprising. Even if the military now cannot even protect themselves, not to talk of protecting you and me, or some IDPs in some remote camps. So it's really a source of concern. And I hope, like I said, I am not a military expert. Maybe the people heading the security architecture look at the bigger picture. They should do something, because our soldiers are dying.
True.
Why?
Sorry. Very quickly, we'll move on to the Punch newspaper. We are running against time now, so we'll be a bit more faster with the papers. The major headline on the Punch newspaper reads, National Assembly fights Malami back, appeals Electoral Act judgment. President Buhari ministers await final verdict, puts 2023 ambition on hold. Lawan gives aides planning to contest, ultimatum to resign. Omar Agege's men comply. Cross River APC asks Ayade's men to resign. Bauchi governors order aides to step aside. I would like your perspective on this. I think we're at the point where it appears people are choosing what laws to respect. We are seeing moves by the governors and the Rex asking their aides to resign. Yesterday in Delta State, the chief of staff and about 7 of his commissioners had to go, but at other levels, we are seeing people staying put, waiting for whenever they think it's convenient to take a walk.
Well, whatever it is, the damage has been done, if you call that damage, but it's good for our democracy. Mr. Sunday, if you want to be governor of your state, please vacate as a minister, commissioner, advisor, and go and concentrate. We don't want conflict of interest. Let's say you are a minister of police affairs, and you want to be the governor of your state. It apparently means that you will use your influence to mobilize more police to harass people like me who are contesting with you. Or you are even supervising some very powerful agencies that can make Omar. Let's say you are Minister of Justice, for instance. You are supervising EFCC, ICPC, and what have you. Now I'm contesting. I'm just a bloody journalist. Before you know, you will bring one report, or you will send men in the night, say that, okay, I have stolen, even though I'm a journalist, I have stolen billions and whatever. And before you know, you drag me to So it simply means there won't be level playing ground. But whatever it is, even though the lawmakers, did not do that for the sake of Nigeria, but it's good for the country. Most of them now who are holding non-elective office now are resigning, to go and contest. So let's wait and see what happens to the big masquerade.
The minister talked about gazetting the pronouncement of the court almost immediately. But is that within his realm and purview to do, without a presidential instruction?
I don't want
Especially when, you have not explored the options of all the appellate courts.
I don't want to impugn meaning to the speed
with which he made the pronouncement.
The justice ministry is reacting to the Umuahia
court procurement.
Judgment. But by and large, the whole thing is causing confusion. And look at it now. It is at your own peril not to obey it.
Yes.
Because when finally this thing is upturned,
and the number of days,
and maybe even you are a governor-elect, they will say that you didn't follow the procedure. What happened to Zampara people will happen to you. So I think it's a good development. And most of the governors and even the National Assembly members, have started respecting the. So whether the big masquerades resign or they don't, they are still G3.
Interesting. I think what a way to bring this conversation to a close. It's always a pleasure to have you. Even though he calls himself not a politician, it's always a pleasure.
He speaks like a politician, doesn't he?
and looks like one, apparently. To have you in the studio, share your perspective with us on Daybreak. We wish you a pleasant Friday.
Thank you very much.
Even though we know you can access Kaduna and the interim. You're welcome once again. Thank you.